Hey everyone, it's Steph here if you don't already know, and on this channel I just talk about all things careers and all things lifestyle. And in today's video I'm going to be sharing my April legal trends with you. So as promised in my recent legal trends video, I am going to be going through a couple of the deals that I think are super interesting. I'll be doing a really quick summary of them. Of course I will link all of the deals down below, and then I'll talk through how I personally would talk about these deals in the application stage. So if you like this kind of content, please do make sure that you like, comment and subscribe, and let's get straight into the video. Okay, so the first deal that I'm going to talk about is done by Latham and Watkins, and I'll pop the article up on screen as well so you can see. And it says Latham and Watkins advises Chevron in proposed joint venture with Talos Energy and Carbon Vert. So for me personally, and this kind of links into how you would talk about in your application, the main reason why this deal stood out to me, and just for context, you should know that I'm part of the ESG team at my office, so I get sent daily emails with a compilation of loads of different kind of ESG updates, right? And sometimes these include deals from other firms, but sometimes it's just also industry insights, etc. So this particular deal kind of took my eye when I was running through the emails that I receive daily, because for me, I'm quite interested in energy. Obviously, I'm interested in ESG as a whole, but I am also a little bit interested in energy. One of the main reasons for this, just for context so that you can understand a bit more about me, is that one of the first deals that I was really interested in when I was applying for firms before getting my TEC was this LNG deal that was done in West Africa. It was actually done in Tema, which is great, in Ghana. And I just found that really interesting because, you know, there has to be a move away from fossil fuels because we don't have enough fossil fuels. Has to be a move towards renewable energies and cleaner energies, etc. So I just kind of, it's not necessarily something that I actively look into and I actively follow, but whenever I see deals that are to do with energy, I'm kind of just like, interesting. So yeah, when I saw this one and I saw that was about energy, I was like, interesting. And I say all of that to say that when you're talking about a deal in an application, I think it's important that you do include a line or so to explain why that is interesting to you. So for me, when I would be talking about this kind of deal, I would say literally what I just said to you, but obviously write it in a more eloquent and concise way that, you know, I had initially come across energy deals and give the example of the LNG one that I mentioned, and therefore I took the initiative to research more energy deals because I thought this was an interesting area that I wanted to find out more about. Something along those lines, very short and brief, to just explain why I actually find it interesting. And I think that's really important because it can sometimes come across when you put in a deal that like you just threw in a deal because you thought it was a good thing to do. Whereas if you are able to explain why you actually find it interesting, then it's more kind of like, oh, you actually took the time to research this and you actually know what you're talking about. So definitely put in that line about why it is that you like it, is all I'm saying. Obviously this particular article was quite short. Like I said, the link is going to be down below. But one thing that I wanted to draw your attention to at the bottom of the article, which again I'll pop on the screen for you, which is super helpful, is that it actually tells you the different teams that were involved. So we've got the corporate deal team, we've got the tax team, we've got real estate, who else have we got? Antitrust, and then counsel, who I'm guessing would just be advising generally on kind of different regulatory matters. So that's super helpful for you. And again, obviously Latham and Watkins is a fairly big US firm, right? But in it being such a big firm, the likelihood is that the majority of the deals that are done are going to be multi-practice area deals. So like we've just seen here, we've got the corporate team, we've got the tax team, etc. And just from my experience in the corporate team so far, I've seen that a lot of the time, the way that these kind of deals sort of work is that you will have the tax team, depending on which side you're acting for, but there will be some kind of tax guys involved who will write a structure paper for how the deal is meant to go for tax reasons. The reason why this is done is that 9 times out of 10, and this is something that again I've discovered along the way, you'll find that in the corporate world there are actually 5 or 6 different ways that you can do a particular thing. So let's say company A wants to buy company B, for example, or company A wants to raise money for a particular thing. There are 5 or 6 different ways that company A can actually do that. So then you start to look at what's the most efficient way for company A to do that, and you look at things like tax and also just commercial things as well, like what's, for different reasons, different companies will want to do different things. So you'll probably have a tax person or your tax team, depending on which side you're working on, produce this kind of structure paper or steps paper, which outlines all of the steps. Then your corporate team will then come in and actually execute all of these steps. So, you know, if step 1 is that you need to, I don't know, move a particular subsidiary group to another subsidiary group, or you need to set up a new entity or something like that, the corporate team will actually handle all of the background paperwork that does all of that. So all of the board minutes that you need, all of the shareholder resolutions that you need, any filings that need to be done at Companies House if this is an English company that you're kind of working with, all that sorts of stuff, that's what the corporate team would be doing. The other teams that were mentioned, so let's say real estate, for example, you know, if there's some kind of real estate element to the deal, they will draft any documentation in relation to that, or review, like I said, depending on which side they're on. Or they might just be providing advice. Maybe it's because you're going to be buying some kind of real estate or something like that. So maybe they're going to be providing advice on the due diligence that we have or something like that. So it depends on what the nature of the deal is, but that's how the different teams would kind of interact together. So that is, again, what I would speak about when I'm talking about it. And in terms of a structure, to just be a little bit more helpful for you, I would always, in my first sentence, summarize what the deal is. Don't assume that the person who is reading your application knows about this deal. A, because the firm is massive, like not everybody works on every deal, and B, because 9 times out of 10 the person reading your application is not actually a lawyer. So again, they just might not know what your deal is about. So definitely summarize the deal first. Then after that, I would pop in the line about why you find it interesting. Then I would explain what it is that you understand of the deal. So you explaining that because the corporate team were involved, they would probably be doing X. Because the real estate were involved, they would probably be doing Y, etc., etc. Then I would wrap it up by saying what challenges / opportunities, and focus more on the opportunities, but sometimes there could be challenges, again, depending on the deal, but focus on the opportunities that this particular deal being completed could bring for the firm. So an easy one to say is things like, you know, it just opens up the doors for more deals like this to happen, because the more you do something like this and you are known for being successful in doing something like this, the more clients are going to want to come to you to do deals like this. Do you get what I mean? So hopefully that is really helpful, but let's move on to the next. Cool. So the first deal that we were looking at was all about corporate. Now this next one is all about finance, which you know I absolutely love. So this one, and I'll pop it on the screen again so that you can see, is Linklaters advising on sustainability linked financing. And here they were advising BNP Paribas. So the first thing that I would do here, and actually it probably applies to all of the deals, not just this one, but I would make the point to say that on the firm websites, you'll tend to find that the articles that they release to say that they've done a particular deal tends to be quite short. Now this is for a number of reasons. There's probably some, you know, confidentiality things. Maybe the actual client wants to release their own notice in the newspaper at a later date, so the firm can't actually say all that much until that's come out, all that sorts of stuff. So what I would do is, if you really find a story that you're quite interested in, but you feel like there's not enough information, then I would just copy and paste that title and then pop it in on Google, because then sometimes you can find like a BBC News article or a Telegraph article or something like that, which will go into a lot more detail in terms of the background of the deal, which is helpful for you, but then also shows that you've actually done a bit more research, because you haven't just kind of copied and pasted the one or so paragraphs that are available on the firm website. So that's actually probably a little top tip that I would give you there. And definitely I would say do it for this article as well. So anyway, going back into how I would analyze this article, the first thing that I would probably point out, similar to what we did in the previous deal, was what area of law it's related to. So with this one, it's clearly related to finance. Now, for your knowledge, I think one thing I would do here is that maybe just double check what they call the practice areas in the firms that you're applying to. Because I'm saying finance, but in the firm that I'm at, for example, this would fall under capital markets. Now, to the best of my knowledge, most of the big firms do have a separate capital markets practice, but there may be some firms that have a broader kind of finance practice, and then capital markets falls under the finance practice, if that makes sense. So all I'm saying is that when you're speaking about this in your applications, just make sure you're referring to the name that that particular firm gives to that area, if that makes sense. Cool. Anyway, so here we know that we're talking about capital markets, if we just carry on with that example. Now, why is this interesting? Again, for me, if I'm going to say why it's interesting in my application, I would be looking straight at that ESG point. I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I think it was probably the January update or maybe the February one, I'm not entirely sure, but I did mention that the number of ESG regulations that are coming in over 2022 is going to lead to an increase in sustainability linked financing. I personally think, like I mentioned in my previous videos, that a lot of regulatory bodies are going to actually start requiring that some of these bonds and other sources of financing are ESG linked. And by ESG linked, what do we mean? It means things like tying it to, you know, the decrease of packaging weight or certification of raw materials, work safety, all those kind of things. So literally the environmental, the social and the governance kind of regulations that you can have to just make sure that the world is a better place, quote unquote. So I personally think there's going to be a large increase in that, and I guess this deal is evidence of that. So that's probably why I would say it was interesting, more just because I have a general interest in ESG and this is kind of what I predicted, so it's nice to see it coming into fruition. Once you've kind of done your explanation of what deal teams would be involved, that leads on quite nicely to the opportunities that you think this could present for the firm. If we're going with the premises that there are going to be an increase in the number of sustainability linked financings, and we've seen that this firm has done this one particularly well, what does that mean? Like we said before with the energy, simply means that more clients who turn towards the sustainability linked financing are going to come to your firm because they're going to know that you know how to do it well. Make sense? So those are 2 deals that personally caught my eye as I was going through my kind of daily ESG reading. I hope that running through those deals kind of helped you so that you'll know how to speak about deals when you're speaking about them in your applications. Just to reiterate so that you've got the structure, your first sentence is you summarizing the deal. Your second sentence is you saying why you find it interesting. Your third sentence is you actually explaining that you understand what you're reading. So you talking about what deal teams would have been involved, how they would have been involved, what the interlinking aspects are. And then your final sentence is you looking at some of the opportunities that the success of this deal therefore present for the firm that you are applying for. I hope you have found this video helpful. I'll be back again soon in a month with another legal trends update video. Please do make sure that you like, comment and subscribe and give me a follow on my Instagram, and I'll be back again soon.